I am going to go over problems numbers 1 and 2 from page 70, which is from section R.7 in your textbook. And in these problems, we are matching expressions. So there are three properties, really, that these problems are expecting you to know and practice with. One of these properties is that if you have a variable raised to a fraction power, such as a to the 1 over n, that is equivalent to a root. So the 1 over nth power is equivalent to the nth root. So specifically for these problems here, x to the 1/3 power is equivalent to the third root of x. So that's one property. Another property that we're using here has to do with negative exponents. And that property is if you have a number or a letter raised to a negative exponent, that simply means reciprocal. So you make it 1 over that number to the positive exponent. That's the reciprocal. So the one that we're using here would be the negative 1/3 power. If you have x to the negative 1/3 power, that's equivalent to 1 over x to the 1/3 power. And the third property coming into play has to do with how some of these have parentheses and others do not. So if you have something like a times b in parentheses to the nth power, then you're going to raise both factors to the nth power. So a to the n times b to the n. However, without parentheses, if it was just a times b to the n, it's only b that's being raised to the nth power. A is just to the first power. We just don't write that 1. Okay, so using those properties, let's match our expressions. Let's simplify each one and find its match. Okay, with number 1a, we see that we have a 1/3 exponent. We can change that to a radical, a root. That would be the cube root of negative 3x. And let's check our answer choices, and that is F. Part B, we have a 1/3 power, but we have a negative in front of it. So let's deal with that negative exponent by making it the reciprocal, or 1 over negative 3x to the 1/3. And then let's change that 1/3 power into radical notation. So we have 1 over the cube root of negative 3x. Let's look at our answer choices. That is H. I think I'll cross off what we've used. Okay, part C. We don't have a negative exponent. All we need to do is change to a radical. We have the cube root of 3x. Let's look for that. That is G. Part D, we do have a negative exponent, so we need to use the reciprocal, 1 over 3x to the 1/3, and then change to a radical, 1 over the cube root of 3x. Look at our answer choices, and that is C. Okay, moving on to problem number 2. We have very similar things going on here, except that no parentheses are involved. So in this case, the negative 3 is just to the first. It's not being raised to the 1/3. Same here. It's not being raised to the negative 1/3. 3 is not being raised to the negative 1/3. It's just to the first. And this 3 is not being raised to the 1/3. It's just 3 to the first. So the only thing that changes to a radical is the x. So this one becomes negative 3 cube root x, and that's b. And this one, because we have the negative exponent, it's negative 3 over x to the 1/3, which is negative 3 over the cube root of x. And that is D. And part C, we have 3 over x to the 1/3, or 3 over cube root x. And that is A. And part D, we have 3 times the cube root of x, and that is E. And there you have it.